During an embarrassing and dictatorial speech at Fort Bragg today, Donald Trump sharply criticized protesters in Los Angeles, labeling them animals and a foreign enemy, as he justified his decision to deploy military forces in response to peaceful demonstrations opposing his immigration crackdown. What was intended to be a commemorative address marking the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary quickly shifted into a political tirade. Trump used the platform to launch attacks on protesters, double down on unfounded claims that the 2020 election was stolen, and criticize former President Joe Biden, who has cancer.
What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags. Within the span of a few decades, Los Angeles has gone from being one of the cleanest, safest, and most beautiful cities to being a trash heap with entire neighborhoods under the control of transnational gangs and criminal networks. It's horrible what's happened so quickly. Very simply, we will liberate Los Angeles and make it free, clean, and safe again. It's happening very quickly. Under the Trump administration, this anarchy will not stand. We will not allow federal agents to be attacked, and we will not allow an American city to be invaded and conquered by a foreign enemy. That's what they are.
His comments followed a weekend of protest in the city. Most of the protests have remained localized to downtown Los Angeles of just a couple of blocks, and certainly do not spread across the whole city. Trump's remarks signaled an increasingly aggressive stance towards domestic dissent, especially in cities with sanctuary policies that clash with his regime's immigration enforcement agenda. Despite opposition from California Governor Gavin Newsom, Trump authorized deployment of the National Guard and U.S. Marines to the area. Trump has also suggested he may invoke the Insurrection Act, a rarely used legal measure that grants the commander-in-chief sweeping authority to use military force within U.S. borders to address civil unrest or enforce federal law. Ironically, in 2021, it was Donald Trump himself who was the insurrectionist.
I tell you, there were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible. But these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers.
Trump's escalating rhetoric and reliance on military power for domestic issues continues to alarm civil liberties advocates who warn that such actions risk undermining democratic norms.
We have people, they look in your face and they spit right in your face. They're animals. Los Angeles was under siege until we got there. I've been here before, and I went right by every rule. And I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. And I said, I don't care.
Trump authorized the deployment of 4,000 National Guard soldiers to the city against the wishes of California Governor Gavin Newsom. About 700 Marines were deployed to the LA area, but had not yet been sent to respond to the protests. Today, Gavin Newsom asked a federal court to block Trump from using the military in his city. California leaders accused Trump of fanning protesters' anger and stoking the unrest. The judge will hear the case on Thursday. Photos posted by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement show National Guard troops standing guard around officers as they made arrests. ICE said in a statement that the troops were providing perimeter and personnel protection for our facilities and officers who are out on daily enforcement operations. The change moves troops closer to engaging in law enforcement actions like deportations, as Trump has promised.
When they opened up our borders for the whole world to come in, we're going to get them out. We're getting them out. We're starting to get acknowledgement from the courts that, as a system. They come in without courts and they go out, they want trials and everything else. I think that's starting to work out now. Judges are starting to see what a terrible situation it is. Many of those people that you saw on television last night are criminals that were allowed into our country by Biden. And they want to stay, and we don't want them. And they come from jails, and they come from mental institutions, and they come from all over the world, not just South America. And we're not going to let them stay. If we didn't attack this one very strongly, you'd have them all over the country. But I can inform the rest of the country that when they do it, if they do it, they're going to be met with equal or greater force than we met right here. You could not use the word insurrection, but you could also use the word, these are very dangerous people, they're bad people.
Meanwhile, more than 24 journalists have been injured or roughed up while covering protests against immigration raids in LA, leading press freedom groups asking if law enforcement has been deliberately targeting reporters on the story. Journalists have been purposely and directly pelted with rubber bullets or pepper spray, including an Australian TV reporter struck while doing a live shot, and a New York Post reporter left with a giant welt on his forehead after taking a direct, targeted hit. A CNN crew was briefly detained, then released last night. The advocacy group Reporters Without Borders said there have been at least 31 attacks on journalists, 27 from law enforcement, since the demonstrations started. The Committee to Protect Journalists, the First Amendment Coalition, and Freedom of the Press Foundation were among the groups expressing their concern to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. In a letter, they said federal officers appear to have deliberately targeted journalists who are doing nothing more than their job covering the news. Many journalists are seen as a threat by the Trump regime, or even a target by those who want to spread fear without the truth getting out. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was met with sharp questions and criticism today by lawmakers who demanded details on his move to deploy the troops to Los Angeles, and they expressed bipartisan frustration that Congress had not yet been given a full defense budget from the Trump regime. The troop deployment triggered several fiery exchanges that at times devolved into shouting matches as House committee members and Hegseth yelled over one another. After persistent questioning about the cost of sending National Guard members and Marines to LA in response to the protests over the immigration raids, Hegseth turned to his acting controller, Bryn Woolacott-McDonnell, who said it would cost $134 million. Hegseth defended Trump's decision to send the troops in, saying they are needed to protect federal agents as they do their jobs.
What is the estimated cost of the deployment for the Guard and the Marines to LA, and where's this funding coming from? Will it be coming from quality of life programs that affect our service members or our families? If you want to wait till I finish.
Before I hand it to Ryan.
Such as updates, housing and barracks?
So the current estimated cost is $134 million, which is largely just TDY costs, travel, housing, food, etc.
The most recent deployment of the Marines, Mr. Secretary, what's the justification for using the military for civilian law enforcement purposes in LA? Why are you sending war fighters to cities to interact with civilians?
Every American citizen deserves to live in a community that's safe, and ICE agents need to be able to do their job. They're being attacked for doing their job, which is deporting illegal criminals. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers. You and I both know that President Trump has all the authorities necessary, and thankfully he's willing to do it.
The Washington Post is reporting that after deportations fell short of Donald Trump's campaign promises, federal agents summoned to a meeting in Washington were told to just go out there and arrest illegal aliens. Even with the high-profile arrests of suspects by masked immigration agents and the plane loads of migrants swiftly ferried out of the U.S., Donald Trump was falling short on the number of daily deportations carried out by the Biden administration in its final year. So, in late May, Stephen Miller, a top White House aide and the architect of the president's immigration agenda, addressed a meeting at the headquarters of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, and the message was clear. The president, who promised to deport millions of immigrants living in the country illegally, wasn't pleased. The agency had better step up. And so Trump's dispatch of the Marines, National Guard and federal police is clearly an intentional escalation of aggression. He wants people to rise to the bait. He wants conflict. He wants to blame migrants. And this authoritarian playbook will likely be rolled out to New York City and other democratic cities, places like Chicago, where we are seeing protest against ICE raids. This is Trump's power grab. This is a coup designed to take power away from Democratic governors and assert authority across the entire land. Earlier, Trump threatened anybody who protests at his military parade will be met with very heavy force.
And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester who wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
And it's important that we remind ourselves, what is the real story coming out of Los Angeles? Is the story that ICE are indiscriminately arresting people to make their quota and treating people like criminals without due process? Or is the story that the Los Angeles community is not happy about that, is not happy with their freedoms being taken away, is not happy with the secret police moving in to their city and are exercising their democratic right to protest freely and peacefully? It's clear that Donald Trump is encouraging conflict between these parties. The corporate media doesn't appear to know which story to be covering, and they seem to be more excited about Trump sending in the troops than the story at hand, which is that people have been disappeared, have been kidnapped, have been taken away or deported to places that they have never even known. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.